Welcome to the Darren Williams Perspective, and I'm your host, Darren Williams. Thank you for joining me. Today's topic, of course, is going to be on the coronavirus, but more so it's going to be on the masks that are being commissioned to wear, or being demanded to wear, or being executive ordered to wear, as well as the little tyrants that we have running around here, posing as public servants, or I like to call them totalitarians. But first, what I want to get into is the particulars. Numbers are sometimes very unattractive, and they're rather difficult to explain, particularly if you don't see graphs and you don't see charts and things of that nature. But what I want to do is I want to get into the particulars of the numbers. And those numbers I want to get into is one, the population of America. America has roughly about 350 million in population. That's 350 million in population. The world has about 7.7 billion in population. So consider that with this coronavirus. So America currently right now has somewhere between 650,000 cases of the coronavirus. Very small in comparison to each and every year. There's about 30 to 40 million cases of the common flu, which we don't even bat an eyelash about here in America. There has been they say it's been over about 28,000 deaths from the coronavirus, which is of course sad. I'm not making light of that. United States has had over 80,000 deaths back in 2017. There have been around that number in 2018 and 2019, I would say probably somewhere in the vicinity of 60,000. But you can see that those numbers are totally different and they're totally higher when it comes to the common day flu in comparison to the coronavirus. And then some people are saying that perhaps what's happening is that a lot of the people who are supposedly dying of the coronavirus are actually really dying of the flu, and they're just lumping those numbers in to inflate the numbers. My point is this, ladies and gentlemen, is that America is locked down. This is the four and a half, almost going into the fifth week of a lockdown. The numbers aren't there to justify America being locked down. Some places, like New York, they do need a little bit more special attention as opposed to West Virginia, and I would even here say Maryland. But what's being ushered in now is a resistance to consider reopening, as well as a resistance to anything that President Trump says. And my point being is that today, the governor of Maryland, Governor Larry Hogan, came out and did an executive order telling people that coming up Saturday at 7 a.m. in the morning, they're going to have to wear a mask. They're going to have to wear a mask being outside. They're going to have to wear a mask going into a shopping center, whether it's a Costco, Walmart, or what have you, being around small crowds if you're permitted to do that. But you're going to have to constantly wear a mask. Ladies and gentlemen, the masks don't work. They don't work. And actually, the masks are actually rather hazardous to a person's health. Everyone has a different physiological makeup, I want to say. Some people have health problems. So to mandate that everyone wears a mask is absolutely ridiculous. And what I mean by that is that the Journal of Biological Engineering, and I will link to this, back in 2016 wrote an article in reference to respiratory mask and how they said that they might help in the sense of health, but they damage in the sense of the long run on a biological level and a physiological level. They end up affecting the equilibrium, the thermal equilibrium of a person, the vision of a person, the respiratory aspect of a person, communication, as well as feelings of well-being. Those things are affected by wearing a mask. Now, we can look at the medical field and we can say, well, they wear a mask. They do, but they only wear a mask for about 5 to 10 minutes when they're checking on a patient. They discard the mask. They don't keep it on. But what's being demanded is that you basically perform tasks with the mask on, whether you're at work. Let's just say you're at Home Depot and you got to perform these tasks that require a lot of exertion of energy. And so you need fresh oxygen continuously breathing in, which helps red blood cells, which gives you strength in your immune system. And basically, you're not being permitted to do that. The masks are not beneficial. When we breathe out carbon dioxide. So basically, having a mask, you're breathing back in the carbon dioxide that you just breathed out, which is poisonous. Of course, it's helpful to plants, but it's poisonous to us. We need an ample supply of oxygen, as much as we can get, and that is provided when you don't have a mask on your face. But the governor apparently doesn't know that, or he doesn't really care about that. All this is based off of projections. Of course, the governor mentioned Johns Hopkins and how when the mitigating circumstances that we did with the distancing, prevented us from having 300,000 cases in Maryland and possibly 20-something thousand deaths. Who knows? I mean, how is that true? How can you prove that? You can't prove it. It's all projections. And my point being is all this has been about projections. First, to begin with, it was 2.2 million people that were going to die in the United States. And then after that, when they put in mitigating circumstances of social distancing, they dropped it down to 250. After that, they dropped it down to 100,000. And then they're going to 61,000, which is pretty much in line with what the common flu is, 61,000 people dying. And now, like I said, I'm not making light of the coronavirus, but what I am very disturbed about is how our lives are being governed by projections, by theoreticians, by stuff that there is no empirical facts in. There's no historical data. All we're doing is listening to the so-called smart people, as Larry Hogan would like to say, and they're dictating what our life should be. Now, what they're doing is taking away our constitutional rights. Now, whether we want to accept that or not, that's all up to you. But the point is, our constitutional rights are being violated left and right for the sake of the public health. Ladies and gentlemen, to shut down the economy and to have over 16 million people unemployed because 28,000 people have been reportedly died of the coronavirus, when each and every year 60 to 80,000 people die of the flu, and no one bats an eyelash. And you might say, you know what, well, Darren, we have a vaccine for the flu. We actually don't have a vaccine for the flu. What we have in a vaccine, when you have a vaccine, that means that you'll never get the virus or whatever it is the vaccine is supposed to be curing. You'll never get it again. What we have is a virus that we inject in our system to combat the flu virus. That's not a vaccine. It's not. But my point being is this. We didn't shut the country down when we had 80,000 deaths in 2017. We didn't shut it down in 2018 when we had close to the same. And we weren't going to shut it down until all of a sudden this coronavirus popped up, and it was the perfect opportunity to really impose the will of these governors and some unelected officials. Not mayors are getting into this tyrannical thought process of holding people down. Mississippi mayor, one of them, basically was not arresting people, but giving people $500 tickets for being in the parking lot of a church, listening to a church service online. And basically they were in their cars. They weren't congregating together. They were in their cars. But the mayor of Mississippi took it upon himself to really crack down on people's First Amendment rights, which is freedom of religion and freedom of assembly. Then you got the governor of Michigan, Whitmer. Basically today, in Michigan, in the capital of Michigan, the people are protesting because she is overreaching her authority, completely overreaching her authority. She's tyrannical. She is basically totalitarian. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a prime example of what communism looks like. This is a prime example of what China is, or what Cuba is, or Venezuela. We cannot, as Americans, accept this and live like this for long. We won't last. Communism never lasts. Well, a lot of people say, well, Darren, hey, look at China. China's a communist country. They're doing well. Yeah, they're doing well because they have us, America. We're a capitalist country. They sell to us and we buy their products. Without us, they wouldn't survive. Communist countries cannot survive on their own. Capitalist countries can, and we have done that for over 200 years plus. But if we continue to go down this route of possible more social policies of the government taking over everything and then canceling out capitalism, our restrictions are going to be totally eliminated. Our rights are going to be totally eliminated. The Constitution is going to be nothing more than a piece of paper that has been a has-been. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to wake up and we have to fight back. And what the people of Michigan are doing at their capital, I praise them. I give them kudos because they're realizing that the elected officials, the public servants, as what they are and should be called, they're not leaders. The public servants should be serving us and us not serving them. But once again, I want to say this very plainly. We cannot continue to have this. Like I said, it's one thing to be governed by historical data. It's another thing to be governed by projections that basically have no basis, that basically can change and sway left and right 95% of a sway. If it can sway 95%, then the numbers and the models were completely wrong in the first place. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, please wake up. Please do the research. What I'm going to do is I'm going to forward a couple of articles, put them in the link at the bottom, and basically they're going to give you some understanding of why wearing masks are detrimental. They're not good for your health. They block, like I said, they block your oxygen intake, which is very important for your red blood cells, the production, as well as the delivery through the body. And then I will link to another article, which basically is by Tammy Bruce of the Washington Times, where she talks about how the coronavirus has exposed these little tyrants, like Whitmar and like Cuomo, and get down to it, like Governor Hogan, who is imposing masks this coming Saturday at 7 a.m. on everybody. Once again, this is the Darren Williams Perspective, and I'm your host, Darren Williams, and I thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe. Thank you.